Some players are born to score goals, others are born to create them, and very, very few are born to do both at the same time. You look at the number on his back and run into something absurd. As of March 25, 2026, Leo Messi has 1,308 goal contributions in 1,143 official matches. That is 901 goals and 407 assists. In other words, he is directly involved in more than one goal per game. He is 38 years old, has 71 free kick goals, 47 official titles, and a legacy that no longer belongs only to soccer, but to the history of sport itself. Leo Messi is not just a goal scorer, nor just a playmaker. He is both, at a level that seems impossible. That is why, for so many people, he is the best soccer player this world has ever seen. And in this journey, we are going to go from Rosario to Barcelona, from Barcelona to Paris, from Paris to Qatar, and from Qatar to Miami, to understand how he kept evolving over time without ever stopping being decisive. As a child, people practically told him he did not even belong on a field. Messi suffered from a growth hormone deficiency, and many saw him as someone far too small to compete. While his older brother played, Leo often stayed on the sidelines, kicking the ball from the stands. That moment came thanks to an almost mythical scene. The coach of Messi's brother, Salvador Aparicio, needed one more player and asked them to call Leo. His mother hesitated, but his grandmother pushed him to try. And when he finally stepped onto the field, everything changed. He started leaving defenders behind as if the ball were glued to his left foot. Aparicio shouted at him to shoot, but Messi just kept dribbling. In the end, the coach thought he was too small to finish. What an irony! The man who would become one of the greatest scorers of all time was once considered too small to shoot. His first club was Newell's Old Boys. He arrived at 8 years old, skinny, wearing a jersey that looked huge on him, but with that electricity in his legs that already set him apart from everyone else. He would take off, and it felt like time itself sped up just for him. Tiny steps, an unbelievably low center of gravity, impossible changes of direction, and in Argentina, the comparison with Diego Maradona appeared inevitably. In 1986, Maradona scored against England what many call the greatest goal of all time. Short, left-footed, with the ball stuck to his foot. The similarities were too strong. And in 2007 against Getafe, Messi did something that looked like a supernatural replica of that goal. He received the ball on the right, started his run from deep left player after player behind, and finished to produce the famous Ankara Messi. At that point, he was no longer a promise. He was destiny unfolding right in front of our eyes. One of his first coaches once said, "When I watch him play, I cry." Because soccer has a number that carries weight, the 10, the magician's number. And when Messi arrived at Barcelona, that number still belonged to another genius, Ronaldinho. At that moment, Ronaldinho was the best player in the world. But when people told him that, he answered that this kid would become the best of all. Johan Cruyff saw something similar too, and said Messi could win 3, 4, or 5 Ballon d'Or awards. Messi's first goal for Barcelona already had something symbolic about it. Ronaldinho chipped the ball over the defense, and Messi chipped it over the goalkeeper. Camp Nou rose to its feet. The image felt like an early coronation. But the first great turning point of his career came with Pep Guardiola. Under Pep, Messi stopped being just a brilliant young star and became the center of the system. He was already decisive starting from the right, cutting inside onto his left foot, breaking lines with dribbling goals or the final pass. But Guardiola saw that he could take him even further. In 2009, in a Clásico at the Santiago Bernabéu, Pep made an adjustment that changed the recent history of soccer. He moved Messi into the middle and pushed Eto'o wide. It was one of his first great matches as a false nine. The result? 2 goals, 1 assist, and a historic 6-2 win. Days later, in the Champions League final against Manchester United, he played through the middle again. Barcelona won 2-0, and Sir Alex Ferguson admitted it was the best team he had ever faced in his life. That was the birth of the most famous false nine version of the modern era. Messi's genius there was not only technical, it was mental. A false nine does not live planted inside the box. He has to drop deeper, drag center backs out, create overloads, combine with teammates, and still keep arriving in scoring positions. Messi understood the role completely. He did not just become the link between midfield and attack. He still remained the finisher. He touched the ball between the lines, at the top of the box, in the areas where the game is cooked. and from there, he tore matches apart. The numbers from that era are ridiculous. Between 2009 and 2013, he averaged more than 40 league goals per season and hit his peak with 50 in the 2011-12 campaign. And we are not talking about a fixed number 9, but about someone who was also one of the top assist providers in Europe. That is what makes Messi absurd. He had to drop deep to build play, combine with midfielders, and drag defenders around. And even then, he still ended the season with the numbers of a penalty box predator and a top creator at the same time. That is why the 4 straight Ballon d'Or awards made complete sense. Champions League in 2009, Champions League in 2011, 3 league titles in 4 years, and around him revolved one of the most brilliant teams ever assembled. Xavi, Iniesta, Busquets, Dani Alves, Jordi Alba, Puyol, Piqué, Valdés. The world called it tiki-taka. No one could stop it for years. In that system, Messi was both the creator and the executor. He also turned certain moves into his signature. The perfect dink over the goalkeeper, the lightning-fast 1-2 at the edge of the box, the run into space at exactly the right moment. Messi did not live inside the box. He arrived in the box. That was the secret. Then came the second great evolution. In 2013, Neymar arrived at Barcelona, and with him came a new tactical challenge. Both players tended to occupy similar spaces, and the team needed to adjust. The 2013-14 season was strange for Messi by his standards, 28 goals and 11 assists. Then Barca signed Luis Suarez, one of the most complete forwards of his generation. And that is when MSN exploded. With Neymar, Suarez, and Messi, Barcelona built one of the most devastating front threes this sport has ever seen. Neymar brought flair and imbalance. Suarez brought aggression and savage goal scoring. And Messi, from the right, began turning more and more into a wide creator. He received the ball glued to the touchline, took off, forced the opposing fullback to make a decision, and in a split second cut inside onto his left foot. From there, he could do anything: a 1-2 and a shot, a diagonal pass into Suarez's run, a switch into midfield, or a long ball into Jordi Alba's movement. Messi adapted again. For many players, moving from the middle to the wing would have been a limitation. For him, it was just another expansion of his repertoire. And in the middle of soccer's evolution, when the game started demanding more physicality and less space for the classic number 10, Messi remained decisive. He scored that impossible goal against Athletic Club in the Copa del Rey final, drove Bayern crazy, and produced almost telepathic combinations with Suarez. Then came the departures of Xavi and Iniesta, the aging of the team, and the club's bad decisions. Neymar left in 2017 trying to escape Messi's shadow, and Barca spent that money badly. That is when people started talking about Messi dependence. But even in that context, Messi kept ruling. Between 2016 and 2021, he won 5 straight Pichichi trophies, and in 3 of those years, he also won the European Golden Shoe. The volume never dropped. What changed was the shape of the goals. He was no longer the Messi who destroyed you over and over with 40-yard dribbles. He was something else, a total playmaker. His heat maps showed him farther from goal, more involved in the build-up, almost like an attacking midfielder. And even so, he still kept scoring absurd numbers of goals. Since he no longer lived in the box, his shots started becoming harder. So he compensated with monstrous precision. According to a StatsBomb XG model, he ended up scoring 44% more goals than an average striker from the top 5 leagues would have from equivalent chances. That is not normal. The 2018-19 season sums up that stage perfectly. Messi was unstoppable. The free kick against Liverpool in the first leg of the Champions League semi-final remains an eternal image. Then came Anfield, and Barcelona's collapse. But even in the middle of a broken team, Messi kept carrying them to league titles. And on free kicks, he reinvented himself too. As of March 25, 2026, he has 71 direct free kick goals, already ahead of Pelé and behind only Juninho, who has 77. Then came the goodbye to Barcelona. Tears, disbelief, and an ending that nobody wanted. After that came PSG, where his spell was debated and often judged harshly. But there, another very clear evolution appeared: the deeper organizer. He no longer had the same explosiveness as before, but his mind was still intact. And since he had speedsters like Mbappe and Neymar ahead of him, he began using the pass even more as his main weapon. In Paris, Messi dropped very deep, lifted his head, and scanned everything. He saw Hakimi's overlap, Mbappe's run, Neymar dropping in. And then he released passes like knives. His carries became shorter, more functional, no longer to get himself into the box, but to gain 1 yard and trigger the final move. And really, all of that was preparing him for the one thing he still lacked: the World Cup. Before Qatar 2022, he had already won the 2021 Copa America, but he still carried too many scars. The 2014 final lost to Germany, the Copa America finals against Chile, the endless criticism, until Lionel Scaloni appeared and turned a national team of names into a real team. Scaloni built a structure around Messi. If Messi did not run, De Paul ran for him. Molina covered him. Di Maria brought class. Julian Alvarez brought energy up front. Enzo Fernandez, Mac Allister, and Paredes understood the plan. And in that World Cup, we saw a perfect synthesis of every version of Messi: the false nine, the wide creator, the deep playmaker, and the precise finisher. There is the goal against Mexico, dry and surgical. There is the brutal assist to Molina against the Netherlands, the one only he could see. There is the play against Guardiola in the semifinal, burning down. The right wing like in his best years. And there is the final against France, where he showed up decisive again both inside and outside the box. For a long time, one of the human cracks in the myth had been penalties, but that time he did not miss. He walked slowly, waited for Loris, and finished with an almost insolent softness. That child who had once been considered too small to shoot was scoring the most important goal of his life. Then he lifted the World Cup. He touched the sky. He closed the debate that soccer had spent years turning into some unfinished test. And after that, another Copa America with Argentina still came. Later, with Inter Miami, he kept expanding the legacy until he reached 47 official titles, the highest figure ever recorded for a soccer player. He also remains the player with the most Ballon d'Or awards. That is, in the end, the story of Lionel Messi. The story of adaptation. The story of a fragile child who was almost not allowed to play and who ended up becoming a god of soccer. The story of a tiny dribbler who later became a false nine, then a wide creator, then a deep organizer, and in every version still remained the best or one of the best players on the planet. The story of someone who was underestimated, criticized, compared, and pressured like few others ever have been, and who still came out the other side with 901 goals, 407 assists, 71 free kicks, 47 titles, and a career so immense that it no longer fits inside a simple sports debate. Messi did not just dominate an era, he changed the way we understand what a soccer player can be, and maybe that is the most impressive part of all.